Welcome to Nails, Wood, and Wisdom, building lives one lesson at a time. I'm Sister Pam, a carpenter by trade, and together we're going to look at life, faith, struggles, and growth through the perspective of the workshop and the lessons God teaches us while He builds people. So pull up a chair and let's get started. So today's episode 2, Measure Twice, Cut Once. The blueprint. One thing every carpenter learns very quickly is this: mistakes are expensive. If you measure wrong and cut too fast, you cannot always fix it afterwards. Sometimes you ruin good material because you are rushing, distracted, impatient, or overconfident. This is why experienced carpenters live by a simple principle. Measure twice, cut once. Slow down, check it again. Make sure it's right before making a permanent move. And honestly, spiritually, a lot of pain in life comes from people making permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. People rush into relationships, rush into ministry, rush into business decisions, rush into speaking, rush into reacting, rush into posting things online, rush into arguments, rush into doors God never opened. And afterwards, they're standing in the middle of unnecessary damage, wondering why things fell apart. Sometimes wisdom is not about moving faster. Sometimes wisdom is about slowing down long enough to seek God first. Proverbs 19:2 says, "He that hasteth with his feet sinneth." This verse is powerful because it shows us that rushing can lead us into places God never intended for us to go. We live in a culture that glorifies impulsive decisions. Everyone wants instant results, instant success, instant answers, instant relationships, instant platforms, instant reactions. But God often works much slower than our flesh wants Him to, because wisdom takes time. A good builder does not guess measurements and hope things work out. He checks alignment. He checks angles. He studies the blueprint before making cuts that cannot be undone. That's what discernment does spiritually. Discernment helps you slow down long enough to ask, is this God's timing? Is this wise? Is this emotional? Am I reacting out of hurt? Am I moving out of pressure? Am I listening to God or just listening to my feelings? Because not every open door is from God. And not every opportunity is assignment. Not every emotional reaction deserves a response. And some cuts cannot be undone easily. Words can wound people deeply. And impulsive decisions can damage families. One rushed moment can create years of consequences. That's why wisdom matters. The workshop. In carpentry, even being off by a tiny amount can eventually throw the whole project out of alignment. One crooked measurement at the beginning may not look serious immediately, but by the end of the project, everything starts shifting, leaning, separating, and falling out of place. Life works the same way. Small compromises become larger compromises. Small lies become bigger lies. Small emotional decisions create larger consequences later. And many times people do not realize how far off course they are until life starts collapsing around them. This is why God cares about precision, not perfection. Precision. God teaches us to pause before reacting, to pray before we move, to seek wisdom before speaking, to wait before assuming. And James 1:19 says, "Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath." Notice the patterns there. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to react. That alone would save so many people from unnecessary heartbreak. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is pause. Pause before sending the message. Pause before making the decision. Pause before quitting. Pause before assuming somebody's motives. That's a big one. Pause before speaking from anger. Because emotions are loud, and wisdom is usually quieter. The splinters. This is where it gets uncomfortable. A lot of people do not actually want discernment. They want permission. Sometimes we already know what we want to do, and instead of honestly seeking God, we look for confirmation from people who will agree with our emotions. But wisdom is not always comfortable. Sometimes wisdom just says wait. Sometimes wisdom says no. Sometimes wisdom says not yet. Sometimes wisdom says walk away. And sometimes wisdom says stay planted longer than you wanted to. And flesh hates that, just to be honest. Our flesh likes speed. God likes stability. The enemy loves impulsive people because impulsive people often move without prayer, without wisdom, and without discernment. But spiritually mature people understand something important. Not every thought deserves action. Just because you feel something strongly does not automatically mean God is leading it. Even Jesus often withdrew before making major decisions. He prayed, he slowed down, he sought the Father continually. If Jesus operated that way, why do we think that we can survive spiritually without discernment? The finished work. Some of the greatest regrets in life come from rushed decisions, but some of the greatest blessings come from learning how to slow down long enough to hear God clearly. If you're in a season where you feel uncertain right now, do not panic. You do not have to force doors open. You do not have to rush because everybody else is moving faster. God is not intimidated by timing. A delayed decision made with wisdom is far better than a rushed decision made emotionally. So before you make the cut, before you react, before you walk away, before you commit, and definitely before you quit, measure twice, pray again, seek wisdom again, listen carefully again. Because a life built with wisdom will always stand stronger than a life built impulsively. And sometimes the difference between wisdom and regret is simply learning to slow down long enough to let God measure the situation first. No matter what season that you're in right now, friends, whether you feel broken, overlooked, or exhausted, or still under construction, never forget this. God is not finished with you yet. The pressure, the process, the waiting, and even the hard seasons, they all have purpose when they're placed in the hands of the master carpenter. Sometimes the building process is loud with hammers and tearing down. Sometimes it's quiet and hidden beneath the surface where nobody else can see the work being done. But either way, God is still building. So do not give up in the middle of the construction. Keep showing up. Keep trusting Him. Keep letting Him shape what He needs to shape, because what God builds with intention will stand with strength. Until next time, this is Nails, Wood, and Wisdom, building life one lesson at a time.